Hey lovelies, Lisa here with just a simple, what I hope is a fun video today. A video about pocket-sized decks. And actually, if you want to join in a little bit of a tag, hashtag my favorite pocket. So the point of this video really isn't just to share my collection of pocket-sized decks. I have more decks, especially more decks in a tin, and then also more mini-sized decks. This is a mini deck that I'm not sharing today. But really what I'm focusing on are what the decks are that have become my favorite pocket decks. And not just because they're cute, they're adorable, they're little, which they are. They're cute, they're adorable, they're little. But also because, you know, for me, the whole point of a pocket-sized deck is that it's portable, right? And that doesn't just mean that the size of it makes it good for throwing in my purse or in my backpack. That means that it's the kind of deck that when I take it with me, I can really use it. It reads really well. It reads for a bunch of different people. It's very accessible, and it's durable. So the cardstock really holds up, or the packaging really holds up. So I'm going to go through just a few of my favorite pockets. And I'm going to start with this baby, which was actually the first deck in a tin that I bought. So I'll pause, clear the table, and give a look-see at the Centennial Smith-Waite. So this deck was really my gateway drug into thinking about pocket-sized decks. You know, I'm the sort of person, I don't know if you're like this. Actually, if you want to comment on this below, I'm really interested to hear. I have to have a tarot deck with me at all times. You know, there has to be something in my purse, in my book bag. But it was this deck, this tinned version of the Rider-Waite Smith deck, of the Centennial version of the Smith-Waite, that really got me thinking about pocket-sized decks as the kind of decks I wanted to be carrying with me. You know, there's something about a deck that is specifically designed in its size and shape to be portable that just, I don't know, it inspires me. It makes me want to practice tarot everywhere. And that's really the magic for me about pocket-sized decks, is they're decks that make me want tarot to be part of every moment of my life. They're decks that make me want to bring tarot out in cafes and pubs, to bring tarot out at family bar mitzvahs and weddings, you know? So this was my gateway drug, and it's still one of my favorites. These tin decks are fabulous. You know, they get super banged up in my purse, but that's okay. The cards inside remain pristine and crisp and beautiful. The boxes are deep enough that you can nicely keep the, you know, the little white book and the any extra cards with the deck, which I like. And the cards just, you know, they're wonderful. They're always crisp and clean. And the cardstock in general of these tin versions are really nice. They shuffle well, but they're really beefy. And, you know, the cardstock is almost as nice as the regular Centennial edition of the Smith-Waite. Not as beefy and scrumptious as the borderless, but really nice. The proportionality of the image to the border works really well. And, you know, there you are. This deck, it suits my needs for a portable deck. And in fact, buying this deck encouraged me to explore other pocket editions of the Rider-Waite. So I bought a vintage version, a vintage pocket, on eBay. And I never carried this with me because it was vintage and I didn't want it to get hurt. So, and in fact, I don't even think I've ever read from this deck. I wanted it for my collection. The cardstock is really nice. It wasn't that expensive on eBay. The detail is really nice. You know, this is a 1980s version of this deck, and it's lovely. So when I bought a contemporary version of the same deck, I was pleased to realize that actually these Chinese printings of this deck are really good. The copyright is longer. The color is in some ways deeper. I don't know if it comes up. You can sort of see it on the gray. The gray is deeper. The yellow is deeper. A little detail gets lost sometimes with that deepening of color, like the faces are sometimes darker. But it's a really, these printings that are in China, the cardstock, the quality of the printing is really nice. And, for $15 on Amazon Prime, it's great. But I don't carry the new version with me, and I certainly don't carry the vintage. If I'm carrying one of these U.S. Games Rider-Waite Smith decks, it'll be the Centennial. Okay, so those were my first forays, the first ones that really sunk in for me with the pocket edition. I'm gonna move on to some later editions and move toward the my all-time favorite, at least now. My all-time favorite for now, pocket tarot deck. Now, if we're really looking for like the quintessential, the sine qua non of the pocket-sized version of Pixie's deck, many, and I would be among them, might say that it's this version, the AGM version, the premium Rider-Waite, which became impossible to get in the UK and the US. But if you're diligent, you can find a copy. It has a little white book with definitions, word meanings, and discussion by Rachel Pollack. Great little text, and the cards are beautiful. The quality of the imagery, the color, the detail, the feel of the cardstock, which is meaty but silky, the way that it's using the original pebble back design. It's wonderful. The only thing one could want for this to be like, really the perfect deck would be the calligraphy, the original calligraphy, which this doesn't have. So this is a wonderful, wonderful deck. I don't travel with it. I don't even read with it. It's a deck that I'm thrilled to own. It's in my collection. I keep it safely ensconced in its own little satin bag, in with my other collected decks. I don't read from it. And I think the reason why is very simple. It's like when I have this sense that a deck is kind of precious and irreplaceable, I tend to get nervous about carrying it with me. And also I think the more I've had these premium decks, I also have the standard size, the more I've just missed having the calligraphy fonts. So it's a wonderful deck, but I don't use it. So this is really cheating, kind of like me bringing out the premium Rider-Waite, because these are two decks that are, while they're perfect pocket size, this is actually mini sized, I don't actually travel with them. And that's for a very simple reason, I think. I have this weird thing where it's like either, I get a deck and I put it in a bag and it becomes kind of like this thing that I want to travel with me, and maybe I'll put a little crystal in there and I carry it with me, and even if I don't travel with it, it's still sort of set up for travel. I separate it from the box and there you go. Or if a deck comes in a box that's really precious to me, I'll leave it in the box and then I don't travel with it. It sits on my study table, or it gets stowed away in its box. So both of these decks I keep in their boxes. They get minimal play, in part just because they're in their boxes. But I love them, and I wanted to share them with you because they both are such perfect decks. Okay, the Arcana Tarot playing cards. This deck, first of all, how gorgeous is that box? This deck is wonderful. One of the things that makes it wonderful is the cardstock, which is beautiful, a little slippery, but not unpleasantly so. Wonderful, wonderful linen finish. Feels very durable. I mean, it feels like playing cards, but really nice playing cards. The idea behind this deck is this deck merges the French suits, say hearts, with the Italian suits, cups, clubs, and wands, spades and swords, diamonds and pentacles. It also, in the court cards, merges the imagery of Jack as knight, and then you have these page cards. So it's page, Jack, king, queen, and king. And the imagery, I mean, it's beautiful. This engraved, really detailed, sort of 19th century feeling engraving. I feel like the imagery is, it's a little dark. I mean, I don't mean dark like, sort of negative. It's dark as in the color is a little dark. And because the cards are playing card size, it can be a little bit hard to see all the detail, but the 19th century feel of it means that these decks, these cards translate really pretty instantly. So they have that kind of universal feel, and then they open up through the pips, through this playing card pip, into just that wonderful broad open space that those of us who like to work with reading pips enjoy. So I feel like these cards really, it satisfies all the qualities I need for a travel deck. Beautiful, durable cards that are kind of universal in their appeal, read really well, aesthetically really pleasing. I just don't travel with it because I love the box too much. So similarly, and sort of surprisingly, the Klimt Tarot, which, is a collector's. Admittedly, this is not a deck that was designed for easy reading. It's designed for collection. And although it's called Pocket, it's really more of a mini size. But the artist who put this together from Klimt's artwork is Adanov Adanasov. And, that Bulgarian artist who also did the Golden Visconti, who did Golden Tarot of the Tsar, who did the Botticelli Tarot. And he's just so smart at finding a way to take simple elements from the art of the artist he's featuring and use them to really communicate the essence of the cards. So I feel like this, oh, look at that, so beautiful. I feel like this deck really speaks, especially in the pips, really speaks very well. Here we have a Six of Wands. It really conveys that sense of regal victory that communicates what these cards need to communicate. I keep dropping them. And I got this in a trade, and it was beautifully edged. And they have a wonderful size, beautiful cardstock. It does everything a travel deck should do, but I don't travel with it because I love the box and the booklet too much. So I'm cheating. Here you go. Okay, now we're moving really with the next 5 decks into the cards that I really travel with all the time, and that mean a whole lot to me for that reason. So the first is my bootleg version of The Wild Unknown. So this is the version of The Wild Unknown that was printed without Kim Kranz's authority. That's my card of the month, the Daughter of Wands, my January card. The cardstock, it's a first edition, but a bootleg version of the first edition. The cardstock is much thinner than any of the editions that came out authorized. But the images and the color, the black and white, is not quite as faithful. It sort of has a slight blue cast to it, but more or less the colors and the images are really faithful. So what I did is I trimmed this deck down, and it is now a pocket size. And because it's a bootleg version, I don't mind manhandling it. I don't mind riffle shuffling it. I don't mind carrying it in my bag. It can get hurt, but it reads really well. This deck, so this deck is kind of a fun and funny deck. This is the Terra Nova deck. It was put out by Running Press, in a package with the book and the deck all together. And it's a cheapie. I mean, you know, you can buy this. It's not in print anymore, but you can get it from Amazon for usually like $9, Amazon Prime, or you can find it on eBay. I bought it on eBay. You shouldn't pay more than $10 for this thing, even though it's out of print. And I just wanted a deck that would be, you know, really simple in its imagery and that I could take anywhere and read with anyone. Now, the imagery isn't always that obvious. You sort of have to do a translation to the Rider-Waite Smith readings, but it's really quite charming. The cardstock is nothing to write home about. I like this chariot. It's nothing to write home about. It's kind of glossy, cardboardy, but you know, this is a deck that like goes in the bag and I can use it when I want. It's pretty. I like the corners, which are color-coded, green for pentacles and purple for the majors. That sort of orangey yellow for swords, red for wands, blue for cups. A little bit, it's not really hard to shuffle, but it's a little bit, it's more square. Whoops. I guess it is a little hard to shuffle because it's more square than it is long. But I've had some really satisfying readings with this deck. And, you know, truly like my bootleg Wild Unknown, if anything happens to it, I can survive that loss. And then there's this baby. This is actually the only Marseille deck that I have in a pocket size. I have some minis, but I don't really like, although I've tried traveling with them, I don't really like traveling with them. And I am desperately waiting for the Maria Celia Tarot in a Tin to come out, the Marseille deck that started as an indie deck. It's supposed to come out from US Games. It hasn't yet. Anyway, I love this deck, as do many of us. You know, it's appeared on a bunch of people's favorites from 2017. It's beautiful. The cardstock feels really sweet and creamy, and it's a great size, and it reads beautifully. But, and so in every way, it really is the perfect travel, whoops, oh, fingernails that I do not have. The perfect travel deck, except that in one of my very first times playing with it, I just dropped the 7 of Cups, and now I can't see it. Maybe it wasn't the 7 of Cups. Oh, this is the 8 of Cups, that's why I can't see it. Here's the 7 of Cups. I just dropped it, and can you see that? Bent the corner. You can sort of see it. So it's damaged, it's marred, it's no longer perfect. And of course, me being who I am, I'm like, time to get a backup copy. Which is, you know, a wonderful thought, a little bit crazy. It's like, get a backup copy, keep it pristine, and then this copy can be wounded. But that's how my mind works. Anyway, this is one of my top 3 travel pocket-sized decks. I love it. The other 2 are these. These are the Pam's Vintage and the Pam's Original that you can buy from Game Crafter. I think the artist's also selling them, or is initially selling them on Etsy. These are wonderful decks, and I really don't know which one I love most. I have had the Vintage for longer, and I've used it a lot. I love the feel, again, like the Arcana tarot playing cards. It's got that real playing card, very linen feel to it. I love the way the artist just brilliantly cropped these images, made them borderless without losing much detail. I mean, you lose some. You lose part of the sword, for instance. But, you know, Pixie's signature is in all the right places. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. And I love the kind of curly, I mean, I love the way he aged this deck. I think it's brilliantly done. And then I got the original, and I thought I couldn't love a deck more. But I think I like the original even better than the Vintage. Same wonderful cardstock, and the colors are muted, so it feels more like the Waite Smith Centennial. It still has that kind of muted feel to it, but it doesn't have the brown aging. And you've got the Tudor lilies and roses from the very, very first printing of the Rider-Waite Smith deck as the back. So there you have it. I can't choose between these two. These days I'm trading off, so, you know, either it's the vintage, or I'm sort of leaning now toward the original, and then, you know, when I'm feeling Marseille-ish, I have this puppy in my bag. Actually, I've been carrying the CBD tarot with me a lot, which isn't travel size, but I love it. So my favorite pocket-sized decks. There you go, guys. Hashtag my favorite pocket. Love to hear what you guys are thinking. Bye-bye.